Okay, so we gave it a shot the first time, and then the power went out on me. Very embarrassing,
Tragic.
but we are in it now. So, Meredith Baxter, thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Before the power went out, we were talking about your participation in case handling at Wayside, and then we were also talking about your time in Uganda. I just want to open up the floor to you to kind of start wherever you want to. I've already got the list of questions in my head, but go ahead and just tell the audience who you are.
I am Meredith Baxter. I am a case manager at Wayside Christian Mission. I'm doing my internship for the Kent School of Social Work for U of L. So I have a caseload of clients where I sit down and kind of assess their needs and just meet them where they're at and figure out what resources would help them to get back on their feet or figure out their situation better.
Cool. So what we were talking about as well is that there is this negative stigma of the homeless situation in Louisville and also in Uganda, the other places that you've been.
Yes.
Can you tell the audience what you have been able to observe yourself as just far as being hands-on with the homeless that you probably didn't know before or that you've learned over time in your work with them?
That each case is its own story and each person is their own story, and sometimes they are so neglected and so ignored that they just lose their minds when someone wants to sit down and hear their story or tell them, well, your feelings are valid and that problem is horrible and I'm sorry you had to go through that, but these are the ways that we could just attack that and see how we can keep moving forward. People are just surprised to hear that. And even I have this one client and I helped her get an ID, like a picture ID, and it was like her world was
Seriously?
just completely altered. She was like, you have no idea like how much I can do with this. And I was like, oh, it didn't really take much. I just told you to go to the building and they printed it for you.
Is that an issue with homeless?
It
They
is.
don't have identification?
It is,
often?
yeah. A lot of my job is making sure people have a social security card, picture ID, or a birth certificate. A lot of people, their birth certificate was lost due to like they lived with their parents and then they had to run away because it wasn't safe or someone stole it or
Jeez.
a situation like that. And if you don't have one of those, you can't get the other ones and you can't get a job very easily without those.
That seems like a horrifically complicated situation.
It is.
How do you, what are the steps you go through to get somebody's birth certificate and social security number?
Well, most people I've interacted with have memorized their social security number.
Thank God.
Yeah, but resources like Up for Women and Children, they can get women official and unofficial copies of their birth certificate for free most circumstances.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's really awesome. St. John's, which is a men's shelter, day shelter, they can get it for the men, and once they have either a birth certificate or social security card, they can go to the L&N building downtown and get a picture ID, and that is one of the only places in Louisville that people that are homeless can get IDs, because if you put your address as a shelter at any other place, that it gets flagged and they will be sent to the L&N building pretty much most often. So
Wow.
yeah, just pointing them to the resources that can print it.
Is that one of the more challenging things about your job? And well, let me just open up the question like this. What are the most challenging parts of your job, maybe on a weekly basis or monthly basis?
The IDs and everything is actually the easiest because it's
Holy
pretty
cow.
much it's pretty much this. It's like the same procedure for most people to get it for them.
That just changed my core temperature just hearing you say that.
The hardest part, I mean, this is just kind of relevant because I was at the shelter all day before coming here.
Oh man.
Is mental illness probably, and either that or people that aren't willing to be helped or people that don't want to be helped. And I mean, if someone doesn't want to be helped, there's usually a reason, like they're embarrassed or they don't want me to know about their story or their past.
Issue
Yes,
almost.
yeah, sometimes it is. But the mental illness is probably the hardest part, working with clients that
Does that kind of beat down on your soul almost?
It does. It does. I had a really rough day today with one
Really?
of my clients who was in a psychotic break, and she told me that she knew that I was just wearing a mask this whole time, and that I had followed her here
Whoa.
she said she was from like Chicago or Indiana or something, but she told me that she knew I had followed her here, and that I was wearing a mask the whole time, and that's why she wouldn't talk to me. And she told me that I was the crazy person. I mean, not that she was a crazy person, but she said that I was the one that was losing it.
Jeez.
And she has an 8-year-old son who is autistic and has very bad behavioral issues.
Yeah.
So we had to find a place for him and explain to his mother, there's nothing wrong with him and there's nothing wrong with you. We're just trying to get you the help that you need.
Yeah.
So it was rough.
That's gotta be.
Yeah.
That's gotta be tough. Do you have people get in your face often?
Yeah. She called the cops on me today.
Oh,
said I was
good.
harassing her when I was not.
Nice.
But she got in my face. But people do. It's usually so I work on the second floor with the women and families mostly. But I have a few clients that are in the low barrier shelter, which is a gymnasium with bunks in it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And those are people that are either barred, which means they're not allowed in shelters in Louisville, or they're just they aren't a fit for going upstairs and living with the children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I have a few people in there, and every time I go down there, somebody gets in my face or yells at me.
Is your safety ever a concern?
Not anymore. When I first started, I think I was worried.
Yeah.
Just walking outside and stuff. I don't
Yeah.
walk alone at night or anything out there. But I think people realize that I'm there to help them and that I also have authority there, so they no longer push my buttons.
There you go.
Which feels good.
So you've never really, have you ever had a close call or anything?
When I first started there, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy who, he wasn't even staying there. He just came in to eat, and he got up all in my face and cornered me in a room and was saying some really nasty stuff to me that I don't need to repeat. And
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't feel safe, but thankfully there was a staff member that came and
Yeah.
and
Do you so there's actually a guy that I keep bumping into, right? And this guy has been like, I've delivered pizzas down there for a while, so it was like I'm so familiar with like the whole area, but I keep bumping into this guy, and he's been trying to get gas money to drive home to his family for the last 2 years.
Oh.
Right? You know, that's the I know him though.
Yeah.
But my question is like, there are those mental illness cases, there are those substance abuse or domestic violence cases, but have you ever come across somebody that's like taking advantage of the system at all?
Yes.
Is that, so that's a thing?
It
Okay.
is, yeah. A lot of people that have a lot of odds against them, and a lot of people that have lived in poverty their entire lives or suffered through trauma, they have no other way to function but to manipulate or to play the victim. And that's just, it's the way that they've learned to survive, and I can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that are homeless that know how to manipulate people who may give them resources.
So before the power went out, we were also talking about what you do in Uganda and everything.
Yes.
It's somewhat similar, but there's also the culture's different, the laws are different. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit on the differences between homelessness here and in Uganda?
So the people of Louisville are not very kind and welcoming to people that are homeless, and
It's pretty disgusting. But,
yes, a lot of people will call the cops on people that are homeless if they're not making the city look very desirable or they're causing trouble. But it's 10 times worse in Uganda. They have a lot of rules and regulations against people that are homeless there, where they're not allowed to panhandle or sell things in the road. And it's the same. They want Uganda to be a tourist country, and they want people to come there.
I got a lot more to worry about than that. Like, no offense.
It's true. And they think that, I mean, it's the same in Uganda and Louisville. People think that if you move them out of where they're staying, or if you scare them away, that they're gonna go
somehow
get a
just-
job.
yeah.
But I mean, they're just gonna move to a different place, and they're gonna do the same thing they were doing before because the system continues to bog them down. And
Yeah. So you mentioned that there was a law that they just passed about children trying to do stuff in the streets.
yeah.
Can you kind of elaborate on that one more time?
Yes. So when I was in Uganda in 2017, I believe, is when they passed a law for children to not sell things in the street, because kids usually will go out there during the day while their parents are doing who knows what. The kids will go from the slums where they live, and they'll find corn or bread or candy or water, or they'll make bracelets or blankets, and they'll go sell it out on the street to eat that day, or to even bring money home to their parents, because their parents expect them to go do that. But in 2017 they made a law to where if kids are seen in the street selling, that they'll get arrested and taken to jail, and that's one of their solutions to fix homelessness, to throw them in jails, because they don't know where else to take them.
Yeah.
And there's actually every year that I go, I usually am in the city of Kampala, or the it's kind of, they call it the bush of Luwero. So it's like when you picture Africa, that's what it looks like.
You think
Yes.
of that, what
So,
you've seen on the
yes.
late night commercials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in Kampala, there's a lot of homelessness because it's a city. I mean, it's like America. But there's different regions where street kids is what they call them, will live in like packs to protect one another.
No way.
Yes. So there is this one area that we always go to, or we had been for many years, and there was kids, probably they're all usually boys, because the sad reality is that girls that are homeless usually end up getting sold into sex slavery, or they are sold by their families, or they sell themselves. But most kids that live on the street are boys. And there's this big pack of boys that we would always go see. We'd bring them food and just like hang out with them, tell them like, we're here again, like we saw you last year, like how's it going, stuff like that. And in this one area is when they started, some developer bought that area out, and it was like there was probably 150, 200 kids that lived here. And so this developer realized like there's a bunch of kids living on the street here. So they called the police in Uganda, who, after they bought that property, they went out and they would walk around with guns to scare the boys, and they would like shoot up in the air. And these boys are like ages 4 to 13.
I just don't even know like what the mental process is to do that. Like,
I know.
I don't know what you think you're teaching them.
Yeah, and so these boys, like scared to death, they would go to the gas stations in the area, and they would get fuel and put it in little bottles and shake it up, and then they'd sniff it in order to get high.
Jeez.
There's like 5-year-old boys high on the street, and then they would just fall asleep like in alleys and stuff, and we would go wake them up to make sure they're okay, like go give them some food and some water and stuff. And that's like the way they survive.
That's one of the most intense things I've ever heard.
Exactly.
I feel like that's overwhelming to see in person. Does that, when you go there and you're in the middle of that, does that beat down on your soul?
It does, yeah. It hurts a lot, and I get upset when I can't fix
Do
it.
you kind of see it as like a good fight to fight, or do you kind of see it as like an uphill kind of overwhelming, like at the rate that we're going? Do you think we're actually getting better, or are things getting worse?
It's a fight that I'm willing to fight, and a fight that I'm excited to fight, but I know that there's many obstacles against us, and just how, I mean, a lot of my experiences with working with either street kids or homeless people in America, like, it's just thing after thing that's knocking them down. And even, like, I mean, there are, here and there's, like, awesome projects that come up, like UP for Women and Families, but there's also a lot of things that knock them back down, which, it's a fight that I'm willing to fight, but it's a hard fight, you know?
Yeah. So what you had mentioned was the packs of boys in Uganda and children on the streets, but then the girls, homelessness and a lot of this stuff all kind of ties into one. Do you deal with human trafficking at all? Like, do you see cases of that come across your path?
Not as much at Wayside. I see it a lot in Uganda with the girls that we bring into the orphanage that are like rescued and brought to the orphanage. I see it there often, but at Wayside Christian Mission, not usually, no.
Okay. What's the approach in Uganda for trying to solve those issues, or at least getting kids off the streets? Is it just kind of one thing at a time, or?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of social workers that are employed at Save Street Children Uganda that go out into the streets, and they'll get to know like the homeless camps, and there's like leaders of packs and stuff, and they'll get to know them, and so they're always like on top of it whenever they hear of someone who needs to be saved, or they hear about a girl that they saw that looked homeless, but she was like with a older man.
Yeah.
Like, they're really on top of going after that and just taking it one child at a time. Because it's a lot to take if you try to carry all that on your back to solve the issue, you know?
Yeah. Often with major issues like this, sometimes it can be made political, sometimes it is just a moral issue, things like that. I see a lot of people on Facebook thinking that they can solve a world problem with one paragraph on Facebook, but I'd rather hear it from somebody who's in the middle of it. If you could change one thing about maybe the way like our government operates, or as the American Evangelistic Church operates, what would you say is one thing we could all start doing different to maybe help this issue? And take your time with this, because I know that's kind of huge.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind when it comes to like government policies and stuff is that affordable housing is not an option for most people. And Louisville especially does this thing where they will like redo apartment complexes or like condo complexes, and they rip it out and they're like, we're gonna make this Section 8 housing, like affordable housing, and then they only make a small part of it Section 8 because they're like, well, we can't survive unless somebody actually pays for the condos and stuff. So like every time they redo a section, it gets smaller. So just making affordable housing, because I mean, you know, I know people will hear something like that and say, well, if they really want housing, then they can like work for it or something. But something that like people, and especially Christians, need to see is that like you have to meet people where they're at. And like, I don't know, life is cruel to a lot of people, and I think we're called to meet people at their level and not be like, oh, holy me, like reaching down to help this homeless person, but like, this is a child of the Lord, and this person is called. I mean, they have a purpose and they have a future that I think that people need to open their eyes to the reality that life is cruel, and that I'm no better than the homeless guy in the corner asking for money.
Truth. If people who hear this episode are kind of heartbroken by what they hear and they want to get involved at Wayside or any other organization, what would you take as a first step?
Wayside is incredibly unstaffed and not enough volunteers, but I could say that for all of the homeless ministries in Louisville. So I mean, Wayside has, like, you can go serve a meal, which I love serving meals there because people love to talk when they see a new person serving a meal, and people love for you to sit down next to them and ask them about their day, about their childhood, all of that. And there's Wayside Christian Mission does Samaritan Patrol, where people will go out almost every day of the week and go serve meals and just talk to people on the street and see where they're at. They will always accept donations of anything. Yes. But just as like an individual, just remember that even the guy that's panhandling, and you know, people are always like, oh, he probably makes a bunch of money untaxed and all that. But he's still a person, and you can't forget that. And even like when it comes to serving, like even just reaching out and like talking to people on the street, like being an open ear. How can I pray for you? Like, where are you at right now? The indecency that people have towards people that are homeless is disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a person.
So it's just like, for starters, it just seems like we all need to kind of change our attitude about, this entire situation.
Yeah.
But then volunteering,
Mm-hmm.
is there any specific needs that could really be met, like clothing or food, or just serving, like volunteer time?
The Samaritan Patrol going out and serving,
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually in the afternoons or evenings, is always really needed.
Mm-hmm.
A person to go like hand out apples and sandwiches is
Mm-hmm.
a huge deal, but it's usually like there's no clean clothes or socks or diapers or like feminine products. A lot of it is lacking at Wayside in particular, that I can say of my own knowledge.
Yeah.
But there's help everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Meredith, this has been extremely enlightening. I think anybody that hears this is obviously going to learn something that they didn't know, because I definitely did. What's one more thing that you would want the audience to know about the homeless situation here in Louisville that maybe they didn't know about, or you didn't know about before you started?
Mm. That's a good question. Even though Louisville can be cruel to people that are homeless in the city, and people don't like, oh, there's homeless people in this corner and this corner, Louisville does have a lot of amazing resources for people that, not even homeless, but like low income people that just need help. And figuring out those resources to share to people who may need help, or volunteering for those resources, is huge. Like, when it comes to people that are panhandling or will come up to me and ask me for money on the street, knowing what the city provides is so much more comforting than just saying, sorry, no, man, I don't have any cash.
Right.
Knowing, like, St. John's, you can go, like, get an ID there. Like, Wayside, you can go spend the night there.
Yeah.
UP for women, like, you can go take a shower there.
Yeah.
Even knowing, like, how the city, like, loves its people, even when it seems so negative, that's all you can do, you know?
Yeah.
And just educating yourself on the city of Louisville and how
Nice.
it treats its people.
I also meant to ask this too. Is there anything that stands out about Louisville and the homelessness in our city compared to the rest of the United States? Or is that something that you ever kind of look into or talk about with other people?
Here and there, yeah. Every city is different, and every city is different in how they treat their homeless population. But Louisville is a growing city, and we have a large population, and the bigger it gets, the more people come here, because we're a hub, and we're in the middle of a lot of cities, a lot of big cities. But yeah.
Do you ever talk about or look at the homeless situation like in California?
Yeah, I mean, I've
Do you have opinions on that at all, or is that kind of like that's their own deal?
I don't really have too much to say about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
A lot of people in places like California choose homelessness.
Really?
Yeah, and places like Texas, because they have a lot of resources, and I mean, a lot of people choose homelessness because they have trauma, and they can't do normal life, and they have mental illness, and they can't hold a job or all that. But it's easier to be homeless in places like California and Texas, because they're big cities.
The homelessness in Austin was outrageous.
Oh, I'm sure.
When I was there.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's also a lot of people in those places. And so if you want to panhandle, you could probably make much more than here, you know?
Jeez Louise.
So.
That's crazy. Well, Meredith, I do this near the end of the show so that the guests get to learn about you a little bit more. I do rapid fire questions. Okay. They're just kind of fun little random things.
Okay.
So, brace for impact. No, I'm just kidding. What's your favorite movie, or your top 3 favorite movies?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail is one of my favorite movies.
Right.
Do you know that movie?
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies. I think it is hilarious.
Sweet.
Yes.
That what's that fight scene where he keeps chopping the limbs off? It's just a flesh wound. That's funny. Do you have 2 more favorite movies, or is just Monty Python your favorite?
I mean, that's always like been my favorite. I love this is so stupid. Disney Channel movie Lemonade Mouth is one of my favorite movies.
How old is that movie?
It probably came out in like, I don't know, 2007 or something. It's like
What
it's
is it?
after my age.
Lemonade Mouth.
Lemonade Mouth. It's after my Disney age because I am an adult now.
Was that when the it was like, let's watch a Disney Channel?
Yeah, something around there. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay. All right. I'm gonna judge you a little bit for that one.
I accept that because it is a really good movie and I recommend it to all.
My favorite one was like The Color of Friendship or something.
I don't remember that one.
It was a Disney Channel movie.
Okay.
I didn't understand. It was about apartheid in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
But it was too intense for me to know what it was about.
Yeah.
This white girl came over to America to live with this black girl and her family.
Yeah.
And these police just came and got her, and I was like, I thought we were past this. But it was a whole South African thing. I didn't understand what was going on.
Oh, my third favorite. I just remembered it. It's called Lion. It's on Netflix. It's about this little boy in India. But it is... Have you seen it? It's amazing.
He gets lost on the subway.
It has Dev
and
Patel.
his family. Yes. I want to watch that. I saw the preview.
I recommend that.
It's on
10
Netflix.
out of 10. Do it.
That's about to be tonight's movie.
Exactly.
Awesome. What is your favorite book or your top 3 favorite books?
My favorite book is probably The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis.
Yes.
It is in the Narnia series, but it is the best one.
Yeah.
And
why do you think that? I'm not going to debate you. I have no preference.
It is. I mean, Narnia was like always one of my favorite movies as a kid, and then I didn't read the books until I was like a late teenager. But The Magician's Nephew is chronologically the first story in the Narnia series, so it's before like Mr. Tumnus and like all that.
Seriously? Okay.
Yeah. So this it has, because you know Narnia is symbolistic of the Bible.
Yeah.
And of biblical stories. So The Magician's Nephew has a scene where Aslan and the characters get to witness the like creation of the world.
Holy crap.
And I just remember the first time I read it, I was working at a daycare at the time, and it was during nap time.
Yeah.
And so all the kids were asleep, and I just remember sitting there with my book open, and I was just sobbing as I read it, because it was the most beautiful imagery, and just seeing like the childlike dream of wonder, the creation is like, whew. Oh, it's so good.
See, I actually do. I should probably read that book, because I got into it a little ways, and it was like at the beginning of the book, he like goes to Narnia, and then he like gets really tired and passes out or something. I don't know. I feel like it was like he had to hold on to. I may be like thinking about a completely different book, but I feel like it was Magician's Nephew.
Maybe.
He was like trapped in there, and he was like, I'm gonna read it, because like
Okay.
I got like 2 chapters in, and I was like, this is way too intense for me to finish. I was like, I'm young and I can't handle it. But
relatable.
So The Magician's Nephew, and then which else?
Oh, I don't even know.
Do you like just the Narnia books and everything?
I do love the Narnia books. I also love Harry Potter.
Okay.
The 3rd Harry Potter book, The Prisoner of Azkaban, is my favorite Harry Potter.
Movie or book?
The book.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Because they did the movies a little bit different,
yes.
you know, so it's
yeah,
just like,
the 3rd one is my favorite book, but my favorite movie is probably Part 1 of Deathly Hallows.
Seriously?
Yes.
I think Prisoner of Azkaban was my favorite movie as well. It just scared me the most, if I'm being real. But that's cool.
Yeah.
What is your favorite song? What is your favorite band? And what is your favorite type of music?
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Top 3 favorite songs if you don't have a favorite song.
Okay. My favorite song is Leather and Lace by Stevie Nicks featuring Don Henley.
I respect that. I'm just like right off the bat, like I thought you were about to say like some sort of Ben Richter song, and I'm like, holy cow, she just said Stevie Nicks. This is awesome. That's cool.
So that is my all-time favorite song, and then favorite band. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Or favorite artist.
I love Fleetwood Mac.
Nice.
I like John Denver. I like Let me think.
I'm really respecting you right now. Just so you know, one of the more respected guests I've had on this podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
There you go.
I don't know. I mean, I like 70s chill music, but I mean, I also like Ben Rector song every now and again. You know.
What is like what is Fleetwood Mac as far as like music type?
I would say hippie rock.
Hippie rock? Do you like folk or blues or anything like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Respect.
Do you? So there's like this fun thing that I do like with music is like if there's ever like a place where like an artist wrote a song or about a song, and I'm like there. Okay. Do you ever experience that? Like so here's an example.
Okay.
Do you know John Prine?
No, I do not.
Okay, he's a folk blues kind of music singer. He's old, but he's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. But there's a song that he wrote about Western Kentucky, and it's called Paradise. And literally one day I was driving to my family's in Paducah, and I had to take a detour off the Western Kentucky Parkway. Yeah. And as I'm listening to that song, I found myself driving through the exact county that he was talking about, and I like teared up a little bit because it was awesome. That's cool.
I would too.
But has that ever happened to you?
I mean, every time I go to West Virginia, I listen to Country Roads Take Me Home. So
cool. That's good enough for me.
That's it. Period.
Perfect. Nice. Okay. Weird question here. Okay. Do you believe in aliens? Yes or no, and why?
I'm open to the idea of aliens because I think that God is a funny God, and I think he would. I think it's.
If aliens were real though, like if you were like, yes, aliens are real, what would aliens look like to you? Would they be like the little green men with big eyes,
I think they would be shapeshifters.
For real?
Yeah, I think they could choose.
Just look however they want.
Yes.
Do you think there's like other people on planets like us, like somebody like in another galaxy is having a podcast right now?
I think it's very likely.
Yeah.
Like, this galaxy is freaking huge, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know.
There's like
I like to think that life
galaxy
is a little bit more fun if you picture somebody doing a podcast in a different...
Didn't C.S. Lewis believes in aliens?
Oh, does he?
He believed in aliens
before he became Christian.
Well, no, before he like died.
Oh, I'm not sure.
But no, he's, I mean, like, of course, he's like a profound Christian, but like even to death, like he was like, I'm fairly certain they're aliens. But
I respect that then.
Yeah. So
wow.
Cool. What is your favorite book of the Bible?
Just in general, or for like a specific
Or do you have favorite scripture? Like, I don't want to narrow it to one book, but like, do you have any like, gosh, I read this all the time and I pull so much from it? Or...
Yeah, probably Romans 12 or Romans 6 or Galatians 5 are probably my go-tos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you like about those?
Well, I lead a high school girls Bible study. And
okay.
Yeah, a lot of what we dive into is like carrying one another's burdens, which is Romans 6, or like knowing that the gifts that the Lord gave you, like the fruits of the Spirit, which is in Galatians, and Romans 12. I feel like it lays out what we're made to be very easily. Yeah. And one of the reasons I love Galatians so much is because, like, the people he was writing to were the people who saw Jesus die on the cross.
Yeah.
And then Galatians is him being like, wait, what happened here? Like, your faith has been turned upside down. And so Galatians is him saying, you've so overcomplicated this. Like, love God, love people. That's all he's asked you to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Galatians just so simply lays out faith and like what we're called to as people.
Nice. Isn't that amazing where it's like, how different would even our Christian lives be if like before we made decisions, we just be like, am I loving God and am I loving others?
Yeah. And is what I'm doing glorifying the Lord?
Yeah.
If not, I'm not going to do it, you know?
Wow. That's a good mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that, as far as like advice goes, have you ever received any like profound pieces of advice like in your life? And if so, what?
Whenever I go to Uganda, we have like a family that we stay with, and they took in the mother of the household, they took in her cousin, I believe is who she is, so that she lives with them and she cooks and cleans. And I spend as much time with her as I can because she has taught me so much about what it means to be Christ to people, because she is the most servant-hearted person I've ever met. Her name's Darlene, and she does not rest until she served everyone around her.
Wow.
And like she is just the most spirit-filled, Christ-loving person that I know, and she's taught me like so much just about rest and serving first. And I don't know, she works in the orphanage as well, so I get to see her get down and meet people where they're at and love people until she can't do it anymore.
Is she a native Ugandan, or is she from? Oh, really?
Yes,
okay.
she's Ugandan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Respect. Yeah. Cool. Couple more questions.
Okay.
Let's see. What were some of the other questions I usually do? Oh, if you could tell the audience anything about yourself, what would you want the audience to know?
About myself?
Yeah. Do you juggle? Do you skateboard?
I have a special needs cat.
Oh, okay.
I
said juggle or skateboard. Okay. Like, I'm just kidding.
I don't
just kidding.
juggle or skateboard.
Please
but
elaborate
I do have a special needs cat.
On your special needs cat.
His name is Oliver Twitch, and
Get
he's a rescue, and we believe the story we've created in our heads is that he was pulled by his tail as a kitten because he has a constant twitch in his face. And he's one of the... Have you ever seen the Facebook videos of animals when they have, like, weird balance and they just, like, can't walk in a straight line? He does that.
Seriously?
Yeah, and he's just really weird.
But does he act differently, or is it just purely mobile?
I think he's really strange.
Yeah.
He's a weird cat.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And you call him Oliver Twitch.
Oliver Twitch.
That's hilarious. That's really funny.
Yes.
When I post this episode, please send me a picture of your cat so I can post it with.
Of course. Of course.
All right, cool. So, Meredith, final question. How would you say, summing up, how do you live your life on a mission?
I've said this over and over and over again, but meeting people where they're at and realizing that people are usually just a bunch, like you see a person that's homeless or a person in Uganda that's selling things on the street, like there's always a reason that they're like that, and you can't forget that life is cruel to some people, and it takes nothing to be kind and show people the love of Jesus through your actions and through service. So I guess just always looking to how is what I'm doing glorifying the Lord, and how is what I'm doing either giving me life or giving life to someone, and life that's filled with biblical encouragement and the love of Jesus. That's
awesome. Awesome. Well, Meredith, real quick, one more time for the audience, is there a website or anything that the audience can look up for Wayside to get involved with or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, Wayside has their website, so just looking up Wayside Christian Mission on Google. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but I mean, Wayside Christian Mission in Louisville, Kentucky, it's on the corner of Jefferson and Jackson. You can literally walk in and I will put you to work if somebody wants to volunteer.
Perfect.
But yeah, just you can look it up on Google and check us out or contact me. Perfect.
Cool. Well, guys, this was Meredith Baxter. I learned a lot. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you guys learned something. I know I did. And we will see you next time. See y'all later.